Hello, everyone, and a welcome to the Cucina Aurora Kitchen Witchery podcast on another fabulous, fun episode of Conversational Witchcraft. I'm really excited because today I have two guests. Now, I've never had two guests at the same time, so this is a first. And we are welcoming today Crowe and Laura Louella. Has walked the goddess path for more than 30 years, exploring, learning, and growing. She's a priestess, a genealogist, a wanderess of wild and holy places, and a co-founder of the Sanctuary of Bridget and its flame-keeping circle, Sister of the Flame. She lectures locally, nationally, and internationally on the blending of genealogy with magic and is dedicated to connecting magical people and their ancestral truths. She also organizes Divine You retreats, which sounds amazing, that introduce magical women to sacred travel experiences. When she's not roaming the world in search of adventure, grandmothers, and stone circles, she is home in New Orleans, where she lives joyfully, loves intensely, and laughs frequently with her beloved family and friends. Laura is a priestess, certified Pilates instructor, committed to teaching and the strength that lies within, and the owner of Goddess Pilates, where she blends the art of sacred movement with the beauty of the goddess. She is also the co-founder of the Sanctuary of Bridget and its flame-keeping circle, Sisters of the Flame. Many days you can find her tending her garden, taking long walks through the forest, sitting by the river, or creating a quilt on her 1936 featherweight Singer sewing machine, which is so cool. Laura and Carol, welcome to the show. I'm so excited.
Thank you so much for having us.
This is fun.
We're excited to be here. Yes.
I'm excited to
We're excited to be here.
So excited to have you. You're both in way different parts of the world, right? You're in New Orleans, you're in California.
I'm in California.
Yeah. I live in New Orleans, but I'm currently traveling. So I'm in Arizona, right outside of Sedona.
So by me here in New Hampshire, it's like -3 degrees right now. Like it is effing cold.
Yeah, it is. It was in the 40s this morning here.
Yeah.
But I see why people retire here, because it truly has been no humidity and around be in the 60s during the day. It's amazing here. So, but we'll be leaving here. We'll be headed home for Mardi Gras. So not that I'm going to any parades, but we're going home from Mardi Gras.
And Laura, where are you right now?
I'm near Mount Shasta, California, in a small little town, railroad town called Dunsmuir, where there's snow on the ground and it's beautiful and bright. The sun, I live in a canyon. So the sun for me is just now, I'm looking out the window, it's just now starting to come over the ridge. But it's blue and sunny and sky, but freezing cold outside. Like,
so you're getting seasons, Laura.
I get seasons for sure.
And Carol, are you getting seasons? Well, obviously you're in Arizona, so
only because I'm chasing them. I'm chasing seasons. Yeah. In New Orleans, we have crab season, crawfish season, Mardi Gras, king cake, that New Orleans it's summer, then it's winter for a day or two, and then it's summer again.
Right. Yeah. But not winter like it is here. I mean,
no. My grandchildren have never seen snow.
Wow, that's crazy. I have a friend who's from Florida, always lived in Florida her whole life. And recently she is staying in Asheville for a while in South Carolina. And they just had that big snowstorm there. And she's like, oh my God, this stuff is amazing. And I'm like, Carolina snow is not the same as New England snow. It's not.
No, we've been terrified because and this is funny. So my husband was made remote at work in 2020 because of COVID. He works in IT, so he works on a computer.
Sure.
So a few months later, I'm like, vaccines are coming. You could work from anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we rented out our house. We got vaccinated, rented out our house to our daughter, which is like the best tenant, right? And decided to hit the road. And we got an all-wheel drive vehicle because we're so terrified of driving in snow, because we've never driven in snow. So Laura's been laughing at us the whole time because we're like, oh my God, what if it snows? And she's like, well, you're just going to drive in the snow. And I'm like, I don't want to drive in the snow.
Right.
So we like have braved up mountains, and I'm like, there's snow on the side of the road. And we're like, what is that sound on the road? And it's like gravel or salt or whatever. We're like, what is that? I'm like, oh, that keeps us from sliding off the side of the mountain. Yeah, so it's been interesting. So we have a little bit of snow driving experience now, which is nice, but not anything that, no. We left we were actually in Mount Shasta in November. So, because Laura and I finished up a project that, this project with the book, we were, working on plans that we have upcoming. And we left right before the big, huge dump of snow that they just got. And I was not sad about that.
No. Now, so that's a good question. You two are obviously, you walk the same path. You're, founders of the Circle of Bridget. Have you always been so far apart, or have you really?
Yeah.
So how did you come together?
Interesting story. Tell it, Cairelle.
We met through a group we were in, and I had traveled to California for an event, and I needed someone to pick me up from the airport. And I knew Laura from online, but had never met in person. Well, I get there, and of course it's snowing and icy, and I'm like, okay. Yeah. So it's like late at night, right? So it's like a thriller novel. So we're driving down this dark road over icy, snowy roads, and we just started talking and realized that we had so much in common in regard to Bridget, and we just hit it off. I mean, it was just like instantaneous chemistry. And the friendship just went poof. And we had all these similar ideas about, how we worked with Brit, how she was very special to us. And, it just blossomed immediately. I mean, we immediately, like that month, created the Sanctuary of Bridget. Because we just, I don't know, it's just like this divine thing. We just knew where we were going with it. And it just took off. So from there, we originally decided that we were going to write a book about our experiences with Bridget and how we worked with her. And it kind of morphed into this anthology, which was really, I guess for us, it's like this big act of devotion for Bridget, because it's a lot of work to corral 40 plus people. That's how we have over 40 contributors to this book. Yeah. And so you're dealing with different editing styles. And Laura, tell her what you're doing right now.
Yeah. So what you're talking about right now is the project that I was asked to participate in, which is the anthology, right? And it's such a beautiful project. And I feel like we're sort of starting at the end, and we'll work our way backwards, because this is where you are right now. I'm really interested in your journey with the goddess and with the sanctuary and all of that. So let's work backwards. Laura, tell me about the book and the editing and getting people together and their contributions. And then we'll get into like the backstory.
Okay, great. At first we didn't know if we were going to write a book. We didn't know what we were going to do. So it was really interesting. We just had this deep desire to bring Bridget forward. And we were like, how can we do that and be inclusive and hear all the stories of how she has affected people's lives. Right. And so when we decided anthology, we put together a proposal. Cairelle is really good friends with Judica Isles, and yeah. And she proposed that to Judica, who's with Weiser, and they said yes, and they were super excited about it. And then they said we have to have, was it 60,000 words? 60,000, I think.
Oof. Yeah, 60,000.
Oof.
And so we were like, deep breath. I practiced my Pilates and I deep grounding breath. Yeah. And I said, Cairelle, can we do this? And Cairelle said, yes. And so we just put the call out. Anybody we knew, people we didn't know, and we got this book. I don't want to cry, but the wait until you hold this magnificent, beautiful, far-ranging, I mean, there are so many diverse contributions in there that you can see Bridget in every single one of them, and how she has enhanced and affected their lives is the most beautiful story. I'm talking with my hands, sorry.
Good, talk with your hands. It's a video. I'm Italian.
Well, you know,
so,
and yeah, right. You are. One of the things that we really talked about too, because I work genealogy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm all about ancestors, okay, and finding
which I
these
think
things.
is amazing. Yeah.
So our original focus for this book were descendants of immigrants to the Americas from Ireland and, you know, Scotland and places where Bridget is from. And we were going to limit it to that. And we couldn't, because people were sending things from all over. And I was like, you don't think about someone from Argentina as being a Bridget devotee. I didn't right away, because you kind of get stuck in these little narrow ruts of what you believe, how you believe, and it really expanded our horizons. And we were like, this is amazing. So we really looked at it from the point of Bridget, the goddess and the saint, traveling with her people as they moved to find opportunity, and how she has blossomed throughout the world because of these immigrant ancestors and because of things like technology. Laura and I wouldn't have this relationship that we have now if it wasn't for technology.
Yep.
So people have been introduced to Bridget because of covens and classes they attend online and books that they read that were published far away. I mean, you have this wide array of ways that people communicate and stay in touch with each other, and she has spread through that as well. So she is everywhere. And that was the original focus of it, is Bridget everywhere. That was our original title. That was our working title, was Bridget everywhere, because she is everywhere. You know, she does have her homeland. Yeah.
And she's inclusive. She is an inclusive goddess. She's not like the way that I see her, and everybody has a totally their own perception of that. I see her with, you know, the sunrise, arms wide open, welcoming everyone, there for everyone, loving, healer. So how can we say no to someone who says, this is my story and I live in Spain?
Absolutely. Right. And I think that's incredibly important. I mean, I would not consider myself, as you put it, Cairelle, a devotee of Bridget. You know, she is one of the many goddesses that I work with. And as a kitchen witch, she was one of the first goddesses I began working with as a young witch. You know, I see her as tender of the flame. I see her as stirring the cauldron. I see her, you know, when I'm, you know, heating up the oven and I need to make something transformative, you know, I'm turning raw ingredients into nurturing sustenance. That's how I sort of met Bridget. And I am a little Italian girl from New York. So that she was that one of the first goddesses that I began to work with because of the way that I practice. So I think that tender of the flame, and especially this time of year, as we're going into Imbolc and we're talking about that, the way I see her anyway, this is when I call upon her the most. Now I know that she's there all the time, but I find in my own practice, I work with her the most around this time of year. And I think that it's so brilliant.
That's not uncommon.
Yeah. And I think that it's so brilliant that you, as, you know, people who are, you know, putting together something this expansive, are able to recognize, and as you said, Laura, be so inclusive as to how people might have been introduced to her, whether it's as a goddess or as a saint, and how that sort of ripples through the whole world, regardless of your geographic location, your upbringing, your ancestral background, right? I mean, that's so important, especially in the pagan and the witchcraft community. for both of you, this is a question for both of you. Was there one contribution to the book that surprised you the most for how people were identifying with Bridget or practicing with her energy?
I can tell you that I could tell you, and we may agree on this, and I'll be surprised if we don't, but it was one of the first entries that we got from somebody who's a very sweet person. But her entry, it made me cry because her name is Tara Anura, and her entry is Bridget of the Ozarks. Ooh. And oh yeah, her story is very powerful. How Bridget took her through a very trying time. It's, I don't want to give anything away, but it's beautiful. I mean, it epitomizes the strength that Bridget can bring to somebody. And you spoke real quick about, and well, I'll let Laura answer, and then I want to say something about something you said about how you experience Bridget, because we have a different way, I think, that we look at her too. That's not quite as common. But I'm going to let Laura answer about her favorite entry, maybe, or the one that kind of
surprised you the most, Laura.
Surprised, well, yeah.
I mean, I know Tara online. You know, she's a sister priestess. Love her. She's brilliant, very smart woman. And her story, man, what is wrong with me? I'm teary.
It's Mercury retrograde.
Yeah.
Right.
But, you know, and Bridget keeps touching my heart because picking one is really hard because I have two.
Okay.
And maybe I should have three because she's a triple goddess, but I'm not going there. Her story is very touching. I mean, and the strength. I mean, you just Bridget standing there. I mean, I see her through that story as like a pillar of fire, just like, no, absolutely. And I don't want to give that any more away than that. And then I guess I see her the same way in the other one that I was thinking of, that every time Cairelle and I read it, we cry. Do you know what I'm talking about? The lady, there's a contribution in the book about the loss of a child.
Yes.
And it is
from Bernadette, Montana. She owns
Bernadette. We love Bernadette. Yes,
Bernadette is in here, and it's the story of her the loss of her son. Yes, I'm teary. I just thinking about it. Yeah. Oh, we cry. We have cried over so much in this book. We're ridiculous. Yeah. We sit here, we're reading entries together on Zoom, and I'm like, you know.
But that's beautiful because you can see how people, like, another thread that makes us more common than different.
Yes.
How we connect to spirit, how we connect to the gods and the goddesses, in particular, Bridget in this case. But there's so much that binds us. There's so many more things that bind us together than there are things that take us apart. And being able to see that through the eyes of all these different people and finding that unity is amazing. It's amazing. What you've done in bringing this collection together it's truly transformative, I think, especially for people who maybe haven't worked with her before or are just going, oh, this interests me. Oh my goodness, I've had such similar experiences. Was that a goal for you to be able to bring people together around the goddess in this way?
I think so. For me, for sure it was, because I just feel like she's for everyone and not, she's not a beginner goddess. I heard that a few times, like, Bridget is a beginner's goddess. No, she's not. She's everybody's goddess.
She's the beginning.
Yes.
She's the beginning.
And
think about how old she is.
Yes.
Think about how old she is. She's old. We only see her written about recently, but she has a basis in the ancient primeval deity. If you walk back through, you know, it's not documented, but she is an old goddess. We are seeing the current manifestation of her over the last bit of time that she's recorded, but she comes from before that. Well, she is not a beginner. Yeah.
If you think of where the Celtic people came from, near, you know, history is, but some people say how the Celts migrated. She moved with them. And And that was a long time before they got to England and Ireland. And so that's why you see her in Spain. You see her in Italy.
Yeah.
You see her in a lot of places.
Under all these different names.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's one of the things we talk about in the beginning is, you know, so all of the names that you see for her, the spellings, Bridget, Bridie, Brescia, you know, Brit, Brigdu, you know, Brigitta, all these names that you see that come from, and you know, a lot of them are ascribed to the saint. But the saint and the goddess are so intertwined.
Oh my goodness, yes.
You know, that you can't, and I think that's one of the things about Bridget that, you know, she bridges this chasm of two different, I mean, what other goddess bridges these traditions of people that are so inherently different in their spiritual beliefs? You know, she's that bridge. You'll see flame keeping, like we have people in our flame keeping circle that are, you know, tend to kind of fall a little towards the Catholic side.
Absolutely.
You know, Bridget was introduced to me as a saint. I grew up in New Orleans as a Catholic. I mean, you know, so before I made that switch over out of the church and moved into a, you know, a goddess path, I mean, she was a saint. And, you know, we have a nun in our book. You know, we have a nun that contributed to our book. You know, we have, you know, a physician who's raised Catholic in New Orleans. You know, she brings this fire of Bridget into her medicine, into her medical practice, you know, and so
fire is passion. Anyone who has worked with the elements
and creativity and
that momentum for anything you're passionate about. You know, when you think about creativity and you think about inspiration and that all of these words that we use, right? The light of inspiration, that spark of inspiration, they're all her, you know, so it is when you go back in time and you go back to the ancestry, of course, people have been telling these stories and using these energies for centuries. It's so beautiful to see that. You know, I was also raised Catholic and knew of Saint Bridget, you know, but, you know, as an Italian Catholic, we focused more on, you know, the Virgin Mary and all of that stuff. In terms of the female energies, we didn't really get into Saint Bridget as much until I, you know, found the pagan path. And I was like, oh, wait a second. I, you know, like a 19-year-old kid. And I'm like, hang on, I get it now.
Yeah.
You know, so
I know her. I know her.
Yeah. What is familiar? You know? So I want to know individually, at what point did you start working with Bridget? How did you stumble across, first of all, how did you stumble across the witchcraft path? And in so doing, finding Bridget, or did you find Bridget and that's what led you to the path?
You want me to go first or you, Laura?
Go ahead.
So I grew up in New Orleans. My grandmother read cards at her kitchen table. That's how she supplemented her Social Security retirement.
I love it.
So when I was, and she did the old French style of cartomancy with playing cards.
And
my job, so she did the old French style. So, you know, I grew up in a household that she had an altar and it had a statue of, you know, Sacred Heart of Jesus on it, but it was Mary. And she, you know, so I grew up in this really odd household of auras and cards and candles and altars. And we went to church. So it's that New Orleans mix of weird, you know, kind of strange Catholic mix thing. You know, I went to all the I was going to botanicas as a little kid with my grandmother to get spell oils and, you know, the different oils and fixings and all this other stuff. So a lot of hoodoo influence stuff that it was just normal to me. Like I didn't think about it. So I got older and I knew a St. Bridget, but you know, she wasn't anything. And I got older and I realized the Catholic Church was not for me. I didn't like the way they treated women. You know, I don't, cause you know, I was like, why can't women be clergy? That was
screw those guys.
Right. So
screw those guys.
I'm out. And I came across, I don't remember I don't remember what it was. It had to have been in a bookstore in New Orleans. I came across a book and I was like, what is this? And I was like, well, that's different from what I grew up with, but it seemed similar to me. And I didn't realize there was a name for a goddess path or, you know, anything like that. Because my grandmother other people would have called her a witch. She would have never called herself that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
even though she did read cards and do things at her altar for people. She'd have people come in and they do stuff at her altar when I was supposed to be asleep, you know, stuff like that. And, you know, like if somebody was staying too long, she'd waggle her eyebrow at me and I'd have to go in the next room and turn the broom upside down against the wall behind them so they'd leave. You know, that was the kind of thing that I grew up with. So I just kind of moved into it pretty naturally. You know, in the beginning with Bridget, she was and this, I write about this in the book and it sounds terrible, but I would only light a flame for her when I wanted something, which is awful. And I'm like, that's, you know, and eventually, you know, came across some good teachers and they were like, yeah, no, you don't do that. You know, so I worked with her pretty early and then, but not in the best way. So, and then she seemed, you know, at different points in my life, I wanted somebody that had a little more, to me, seemed to have a little more oomph and fire. So I've, you know, went to all of these, you know, I've made the circle of goddesses and explored different ones, and I work with different ones, but I came back to her, always stepped back, always came back, because she was the home and the hearth fire. And, you know, and I always saw her too, and it confused me because I always think of her as she is a warrior goddess. If you think about it, one of the things we're most excited about with our book is that there's a sword on the cover. And part of Stuart Littlejohn's art that he did of her. And so that's one of the things that we talked about. And I actually you were talking about your own practice with Bridget and how you saw her as this, you know, hearth fire, kitchen-y type of thing. And a lot of people think of her as being very tender, and she is very tender and warm. But if you think of her think about all the mothers that you know, how badass
Fierce.
is that?
Fierce.
Yeah.
It
So
is
I wanted
hard
to read
keep
something.
the hearth fires burning. It is hard to feed the family. It is hard to be the nurturer at all times. That is serious, like root chakra, sacral chakra connection. And that's
well, I wanted to read something really quick and then I'll let Laura go about how we looked at her. This is from our introduction. And so she teaches us to speak our truths, and with our words we are empowered. We look to her as a warrior goddess as well, one who stands when it would be easier to sit, who embodies strength and defends the weak and downtrodden, who faces authority and claims the sovereignty that has always been hers.
Hail Bridget. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
So, you know, you think about that. And so I think people tend to overlook Bridget sometimes because they see her as very gentle. And like I did when I was younger, I wanted something that seemed a little more exciting to me. That was my perspective back when I was 20, 21, 22. Sure. I wanted something more exciting, you know, and she was very matronly to me back then, you know, which I'm just like, you know, I didn't want a mom, you know, I was busting away from my mom. Right. So I didn't, and I was a mom, I was a very young mother. So I didn't want reminders of that matronly, motherly, whatever. I wanted more excitement. And so she kind of hummed in the background for a long time.
Ever present.
Until of course I grew up some and I was like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. And Laura, how about you? Tell us about your journey.
So mine is very different, very, very different. I grew up with what I thought was no religion, no path, anything. My mom was a single mother a lot of my childhood, and just trying to get by, you know, trying to scratch it out. We were always though well cared for. I mean, it was just a different life, but very strong connection to family. My grandparents lived a few blocks away. We were there every day. My great grandmother lived 10 minutes away, family dinners every Sunday. But I was a kid. What did I know? You know, I was just like, this is whatever. My dad, very involved in our life, saw him all the time. Super grateful for that. I feel like it would have probably been easier for him not to be there. But in 10 years, oh my gosh, almost 10 years ago to the day this book is coming out, this is a revelation right now,
Wow.
I got a divorce after 25 years.
Wow.
And it was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through in my life. It was just horrible. Not what I expected at all. And I realized that I didn't really have a spiritual path. I was doing what my mother did, just trying to get by in this marriage that wasn't really working. Obviously, it wasn't working. And I just dove in. I found this teacher that was up here in Mount Shasta. This is a very spiritual place. I mean, there's a lot of teachers up here, a lot of stuff going on, and worked with her for a while. And then she moved to Sedona. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? Because, you know, that first teacher that.
Yeah.
And then I met another teacher and took some classes with her and worked with her. And then I went to Glastonbury. And one of the classes that was offered there was about Bridget. And I mean, that name jumped off of the page to me. I was like, what is this? When I came home, my mom gave me a book of our genealogy from my great-great-grandmother's family. And the last name is Bridwell. And that is from Bridget's well in England. And when I landed in England, I'd never traveled internationally. And I thought, well, if I'm going to fly over there, I am going to spend some time in London.
Yeah.
By myself. And so I went by myself, and I'm walking around in London, and I'm like, I've been here before. Like, I know, I can feel this place in my bones. And like I said, wasn't until I got home and started reading this book that right where I was is where they were from. Bridget's well there has been covered over.
Wow.
And if it wasn't for the pandemic, at the same time, my son was who is just finishing up law school right now, which is another kind of Bridget-y thing. He was going to go study in England abroad, and it was also right there where our family was from. So my mind was completely blown.
Wow.
And then I found out that, so that I feel now looking back that Bridget has walked with me my whole life and before my life and in every lifetime. And she's just a really patient goddess. And she was like, okay, are your eyes open yet? Can you see me? I'm here. Which totally blew me away. And really, one of the aspects of her that I connect to a lot is her keening, her deep wailing, and the loss of a son. And she has helped me through that. My son is not deceased. I haven't spoken to him in 10 years. Not me. He has not spoken to me in a long time because of the divorce and all the crazy stuff that went on. And she helps me grieve that. And it's not a one and done. The grief is present and probably always will be, but I feel like she's there for me for that.
Well, grief is a whole other animal. And I think Bridget is a goddess that can help with grief, especially because she is ever present and grief is ever present. I don't think that in my own experiences of grief, I like to imagine the grief as it grows around you and through you, but it never grows out of you, and it becomes part of who you are. And, you know, in my own experiences with grief, I have to say that, and I'll confide in both of you a story. Many people know, just my listeners and my friends and stuff like that, they would know that I survived a house fire in 2009. And the anniversary is in bulk. Okay. So in bulk morning, I woke up to someone pounding on my door, screaming, "Get out, fire."
Oh my
We lived
gosh.
in a condo complex at the time. It was my husband and I's first home. And the building was on fire. We didn't know. And we came running out. We lost everything. And you grieve. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Watching the building burning and looking at my husband and saying, the words I spoke were, this is the goddess telling us to pack our stuff and move on, that we're not meant to be here, that we had for a long time been talking about moving and all that stuff. And in my mind, the goddess that I was referring to was Bridget, because she was the one lighting the fire under my ass to change my life, whether or not it was a pleasant experience. She was the one saying, "You're brave enough to get through this. You're brave enough to do this." She was the one saying, "This is going to transform you. The fire is transformative. And this is going to transform you through the hardship, through the grief." That idea of forging hard steel, forging metal, being strengthened by this fire, this experience, this grief. And that is, although the way I practice with Bridget is the cauldron, the churning, the fire keeping, and the kitchen witchery, my truest, what's the word I'm looking for? My truest experience, my visceral experience with her was literally going through a fire, So I completely understand, Laura, when you're talking about the transformation of grief and the way she is omnipresent through it with you. It's not something I've shared with people. So thank you for giving me that platform to talk about it, and for being so open about your own grieving of an estrangement with your son. I think people don't realize that those chasms in emotional relationships can also cause grief for the life you thought you were going to have, or the relationship you thought we were going to have. Just because the person's not dead doesn't mean that you're not grieving them. Just because I survived that fire doesn't mean every imbulk I don't sit and have a moment of grief for the life I thought I was going to have, even though the life I have now because of it is great.
Yes.
It was a hard thing to go through, right? I imagine you heard so many stories like that in putting this together.
I was afraid to send that one to her because it came to me first, and I texted her, I'm like, "You've got to read this." And then I was like, of course I had to send it to her because it's our book,
right?
But I was like, oh, and I just knew it was going to be something really emotional for
absolutely.
her. In thinking about transformation and stuff, I'm thinking about when I really started with Bridget really coming to the forefront was just like a trio of things. I hurt my hip. I worked in ICU for many years as an RN, and I had a hip injury and needed surgery, and that ended my bedside career and left me with a mobility impairment. Then my father died.
Oof.
And we were very estranged, and I went to Ireland, and I was overseas, and then got a blood clot in my lungs.
Oh my God.
And almost died from that. And those whole things of the way that my life just tipped upside down, and went from me being very active and having a great career and a good income, and being able to do all the things that I wanted to do, to walking with a walker and then a cane, and
Oof.
all the things that developed with that. And I talk about that in one of my stories too, about how these changes can be it's like your life is just burnt up,
Yes.
and you grieve the people. I grieved my father even when he was still alive, because we were we didn't, we weren't close.
Yep.
I've watched Laura grieve off and on with her situation. I see so many other people grieve their losses in different ways. You know, your loss of what you were going to have if the fire hadn't happened, and other people's whose experiences. And that's the thing that we got in this book, I think, was the outpouring of experiences. You know, and in the celebrations too. This is a very celebratory book. I do want to say on the last thing that we did about grieving, we got an entry from Angie Buchanan about Bridget as midwife, and she's a death doula, and she writes about Bridget, and she says what she says. You know, she talks about Bridget as the one who stands between and inhabits the liminal spaces, the threshold that exists after the last exhale and before the next inhale. But that threshold is a busy place, and there is more than one kind of midwife, you know. So Bridget is liminal, and she does move. She's in that space. You know, people think of midwives as birthing and whatnot, but you midwife out as well as you midwife in. So, and she stands there for both.
Whew, you forgive me for a moment, because
it's heavy.
I held my father's hand when he passed between this world and the next. And it's one of the hardest moments and one of the most beautiful moments that I celebrate in my life, because he was the first person to hold me when I came into this world, and I was the last person to hold him when he left this world. And I'm 100%, like, I think a death doula is the most amazing thing in the world. I don't know why that's not like something people know about or people do. Like, I don't understand why more people don't understand that death is such a part of life. But I never, until this moment, when you brought it up, Cairelle, never in this moment would have associated Bridget with that moment or the strength of that moment until you just mentioned that. So thank you for that.
We have a whole section on the circle of life and death. That's the last part of this anthology, is the circle of life and death, and how she moves in all the spaces.
Well, she can't.
So I think that's the thing. Go ahead, Laura.
She can't be one and not the other.
Right.
She's a threshold goddess. She's both and everything in between. And so I think it would have been a disservice, even though some of these, I think there's even a like a little warning, like this might be hard to read.
Yeah.
Trigger warning. I don't know that they put a trigger in there, but they did put this. They put the circle of life and death. They have the chapter marker that talks about this death. Yeah. Because some of these stories are hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Bridget gets, what we know about her gets lost, because like Cairelle said, she's the tender, easy, loving, healing goddess. And she is, but she's also this goddess that stands with you and holds you when you feel like you can't stand up. That's what I feel. Like those days that grief, I mean, and we all have grief. We grieve many things.
Sure.
How could she not be there too?
Absolutely.
That's who she is. And so I think it would have been a disservice to Bridget and to anybody that picks up this anthology to leave out the hard parts.
100%. And on that note, I want to take a quick break. Let's have a breather, because and then we'll come right back, and we'll talk about release dates and all of that good stuff. All right. So we're going to take a quick break, hear from our fabulous sponsors, and be right back. Welcome back, friends. We are here with Crowe and Luella, the amazing, wonderful women from the Sanctuary of Bridget, who have just put together this incredible anthology for Bridget through Weiser Publishing, which is great. That's actually how I found you, because Judica was like, you need to do this and submit a recipe. And I was like, all right. And then you guys were like, yay, thank you. So I'm so excited to be talking about this amazing anthology. I don't think there's really anything been done like this. And I know there's so much information and there's so much you want to tell us all about. And we don't have a
So
ton of
much.
time left.
Yeah.
So are there like, how about Cairelle, how about you give us like 2 of your favorite bits of the book? And then Laura, maybe you give us 2 of your favorite bits of the book, things that are unexpected that people can be looking forward to in this very unique anthology.
I think 2 of the things that people might not expect for this first is a tarot spread from Nancy Hendrickson.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, a tarot spread from Nancy Hendrickson, which we were really excited to get. I love her ancestral approach to tarot, and she's brilliant. So she's got a tarot spread. I'm looking for I can't remember the title of it. Oh, Walking Bridget's Path.
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah, and the second thing that I think people might not expect is the amount of recipes in here, which I think will speak to your heart. Yeah. So we've got your entry, which is amazing. By the way, I chose that picture out of the ones we did out of the ones that you sent because we liked the cat in it. The cat just makes the photo, and we were like that. Well, it just has to be this one. And I emailed Judica, and we're like, yeah, we like this picture with the cat in it because it's just so it just screams. Yeah,
he's in every. So I have 2. Most of my listeners and my viewers know I have. Through the pandemic, I lost my 2 cats that I had had for 15 years. One of them was my familiar. And then they both passed away during the pandemic. And I was like, I can't live my life without cats. I need cats. And we adopted a little bonded pair of 2 black cats. And we named them Sirius Black Cat and Ollivander. And
nice.
Ollivander is in every, like, he needs to be, if I'm podcast recording, if I'm cooking, he needs to be everywhere where the action is. So thank you for including him.
Oh yeah, no, he's in there. So yeah, I think that people will be surprised by the variety of things that are in here. There's stories and poetry, recipes, and the tarot spread. And Laura's going to talk about something else in a second that we were both really excited about that came in for the book. And it's just we're in love with it. It's birthing soon. This is an Aquarius book baby, which is
Love it.
Pretty important, which Laura's going to talk about in a second. But yeah, we just got ours, and you'll be getting yours very soon.
We're gonna get mine.
So yeah, it should be coming to you. You'll have it in the next couple of days.
Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you
so much. It's an Aquarius book baby, so we're like super excited about that. So yeah, it's like
I'm really excited. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
I'm super grateful. So Laura, what are the 2 things that are unexpected?
Number 1 for unexpected. I mean, I love every entry in this book.
Yeah.
So asking me to pick something is like
Sorry.
a mother and a child.
Yeah.
You know how that feels.
Yeah.
And this is my first book child, so this is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Astrology is in this book. Bridget through astrology. And our good friend, teacher extraordinaire, Maria Jones from UK, wrote this. And it's so beautiful. So, but one quick thing that I wanted to share about this process, as Cairelle and I have been studying astrology, is that when we first came together and started ideas, the North Node, which I don't know if everybody knows what the North Node, it's like where you're going, what your trajectory in this life, was in Cancer, and the South Node, where you've been, is in Capricorn. So we were like mother, home, hearthing, and then, trying not to push to decide what to do. And just as that happened, the North Node moved into Gemini, which is thinking, writing, listening, air. And the South Node was in Sagittarius. And to me, what that says is that we had a unique idea to share with the world. And Gemini just happened to say, here I am, pick up your pen and start writing. I just thought that was beautiful. And today, this was like, today, the North Node moves into Taurus and the South Node moves into Scorpio. And to me, what that says in Taurus is we're sharing our treasure with the world. We're sharing Bridget with the world.
The beauty. Mm-hmm.
The beautiful, lush book that we've just, and Scorpio is about transforming and letting go and having the courage to say, here we are, and here's what we've done. And here's what we've done with this amazing group of people. So I thought that was awesome. And that it's happening in Aquarius is just like the icing on the cake. Yeah. It's just change for the masses. Everybody, please know Bridget in some way. So I only talked about one thing, but that to me was really huge. I was getting ready this morning and I was like,
oh crap, right.
I'll talk about this.
We want to say this too, why it was so important is that this is an Aquarius book, baby. And it really kind of fell out this way because we think of this, it's like whenever this book sits in the hands of someone else other than us is when the book is born, so to speak. Aquarius starts in about 12 hours. Our books are going out into the world in tomorrow. So it's the beginning of Aquarius. And Maria wrote in the book, in goddess astrology, the great goddess Bridget has a special connection with the sign of Aquarius. Her festival of Imbolc is celebrated during Aquarius season each year as the star fire of her inspiration begins to awaken within us once more after the long, cold winter months. Aquarius is the sign that reminds us of our celestial origins. Like Bridget herself, Aquarius teaches us that we are all one with each other, the earth and the cosmos. She teaches us that we are here to share our unique gifts and visions in service to the evolution of the whole.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Right. And so, so really the timing has just been, because we were told March 1st. Yeah. We were like, we hope it's sooner than March 1st because we really wanted an Aquarius book, baby. Yeah. And I for good luck, and Judica suggested this, and she says every author should do this: order your own book and have it sent to your house. This is for good luck, And so I ordered it, and I got an update this morning in my email that my order was going to be delivered on January 24th.
Wow.
And I'm like, wait, what? That's not March. So it's
fantastic.
Like coming. So the pre-orders for people that pre-ordered, it's coming.
It's coming.
Yes.
So we're recording this today is January 19th. So this is the day that we're recording it. And this episode is going to air in about a month.
Right.
February, I think I have your air date somewhere on February 21st. And
yes.
I'm hoping that usually we're pretty good about keeping the air date. It would either, could be the Monday before or the Monday after, but I'm pushing my producer to make sure that this is going to be aired February 21st. So that because we were talking about that the book was going to be released either mid-February or early March. So I wanted to make sure. So if people are listening to this, people are listening to this February 21st, they can get this book now, right? This is available.
Yes. To my knowledge. And I think the ebook might not be released until March 1st, but the actual physical paperback book, if you go on to like say Amazon right now, it's going to give you a delivery date instead of saying pre-order now. It gives you a delivery date. So it switched and I was like, oh my God.
So tell us where you can get this book and where we can find more about to both of you and the Sanctuary of Bridget. Where can people find these things online? What are websites and Instagrams and things like that?
Books are available anywhere. I always suggest people go to their favorite local bookstore. You can order it there. Say this from Weiser, Bridget's Light. Order it for me. That's my official name of the book. And a lot of them are having it. Bridget's Light. Bridget's Light.
Official
Tending
name of
the Ancestral Flame of the Beloved Celtic Goddess. Perfect. Yeah, Bridget's Light. And so, but Amazon has it, Barnes and Noble has it, Target has it, any book depository has it. Local bookstores. I've been checking out different local bookstores. I know in New Orleans, Octavia Books has it. So it's there. It's kind of all over. It's starting to spread and move about. The ebook, again, the availability on that. I don't know if they're going to stick to the official release date for that. We are both. Yeah. And what?
This is not official. I don't know, but I think somebody may be recording the audio of it.
Oh, you're going to have an audiobook.
Yeah, we didn't
Excellent.
know. We didn't know. We actually saw a post pop up on Instagram from the very beautiful, and saw her voice is amazing, which of course it is because she does audiobooks, but what is her name? Leslie just-
Howard.
Leslie Howard narrates.
Oh,
She posted, she's like, I'm in the booth with this beautiful book called Bridget's Light. And we were like, what?
like 9 o'clock last night. I was like, Cairelle.
Yeah. Because Laura called me and I was like, what?
So exciting. I love audiobooks.
Yeah.
I like to have a hard copy of a book, but I'm more likely to listen to a book than to read a book because I drive like a ton. So I use my vehicle as like,
Yeah.
my mobile classroom, and I'm always listening and listening and listening. So, but I love to have a hard copy of a book because I need to have collections of books because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Right. So, but
Yeah.
that's really exciting. Okay. So you can find it anywhere books are sold. We want to go to our local bookshops first,
Yes.
of course. Right. And where can we find out
Right.
more about the both of you and the Sanctuary of Bridget?
We have a website. It's www.sanctuaryofbridget.com. And there's information about us both on there, and about a little bit about the sanctuary and where we started, and what our plans are. It's an evolving website. I'll put it like
Absolutely.
that, because all of this, we've been so busy with this book,
Yeah.
and but that's where you can find out about us. Sanctuary Bridget is on Facebook and Instagram, and as that name, at Sanctuary Bridget.
Mhm.
And then we're on Instagram as well. Crowe and Laura Louella on Instagram and Facebook. And
Excellent.
yeah,
Excellent.
Sanctuary of Bridget will link you to all of that. So that
Yeah.
would
Oh,
easiest.
perfect. And I would assume that there will also be links up on Sanctuary Bridget for the book as well. So if somebody wants to learn all about
Yes.
you can click and click and click, and it will bring you to where you can purchase the book, either if it is directly through Weiser even, right?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay.
Yes.
So
And I do want to
Yeah.
say one thing that's really, really important.
yes.
In the beginning, we struggled because there were so many people contributing, and there's a whole payment and royalty thing. This book, every single penny from this book that it, isn't include, like for post, of course we have to pay for postage and stuff like that, but everything is going to nonprofit.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
this is a nonprofit book. Yeah. We picked 3. And I'm looking, I know them, and I can see them in my mind. I can't remember the names of them right now. It's just completely slipped my mind. But there's 3 nonprofits that we chose. One is for First Nations people. The other one is geared towards immigrants, and helping them settle in the country as they come in. And the third is for women, for building homes, for building houses. It's women
Amazing.
rebuilding. Yeah. So we wanted to cover women, immigrants, and First Nations people, since we came here as settlers, and to
Wow.
give something back to them. Yeah.
Because
So it really is a kind of a labor of love and a devotional act. So
It's beautiful.
It's our devotion to Bridget. We felt like that it would be wrong for us to not devote this to her. For us.
Absolutely.
I don't want to say wrong because that's hard. It's not wrong. It's what we chose to do to honor her and our devotion to her.
I think that's
And-
absolutely brilliant.
yeah, as we set on this path together, the first thing we're going to do is this. It's kind of like our thank you. Really.
I love it. So is there, and I know you're like on the new book baby high, right? Are you
Yeah.
already thinking about what might come next in terms of
Yes.
classes or expansion or another book or another anthology?
There's another. Yeah.
So can you give us like
okay.
a little like tease of what might come next?
Laura is one of the things that makes our relationship work so well. Is Laura is a Capricorn. She's very organized. She's very listy. She's very focused. I am a Leo. I'm like, hey, look at that over there. And she's like, no, focus. So
Right.
she's really like the driver and whatnot. But at the same time, her creativity is just astounding. So I guess we can share. We're working on a new book called tentatively Bridget's Wheel.
Ooh.
We just start getting started with that, and it's about working with her through the seasons of the year. And We have classes that we're doing. We are teaching at Summer Magic Fest in Florida in the summer. And yeah, we're to Bridget and the Cosmic Hive, talking about Bridget's magic and how she's associated with the bee. People don't think of Bridget as a bee type goddess.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she does have those otherworldly orchard, and the bees are her messengers. So we're doing a class about that.
Oh, what a cool
other stuff coming up too.
Something else I wouldn't have thought of, right?
And then post-pandemic, when we can all travel again and all see each other and hug each other and enjoy being together, it is our heart's desire to take a group of women to Ireland and really explore Bridget deeply together.
Oh,
count me in. Count me in. I'm sign me up. Yeah. I am ready. Let's go. That's just amazing.
We had planned before the pandemic hit. We had plans, and of course we had to cancel everything like everybody did. So
yeah. And
that gave us the space to birth this whole thing. So
didn't you think like it would be over by now and we'd all be,
we were just really like, just give it a few weeks.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd be 2 years into this and be like, yeah, I'm still not going out and I'm still not going anywhere. Like no. I can't.
My dad's a history major, and so is my son. And I said, don't you think this is going to be over in like 6 months? And they're like, no, it's minimum of 2 years, Laura. I'm like,
2 years.
They're like, read. And
that's how pandemics last for 2 years. Right?
Last for 2 years.
Yeah.
So I'm so ready and hopeful and at my altar before Bridget, asking her, because she is the great healer. She's a healer. Mm-hmm. Just asking her, please heal us collectively so that we can, maybe life won't ever be exactly like it was. And for many people it won't. Yeah. But can we have some portion of what we had back? And if we get it back, for me, I will appreciate it more.
Yeah.
Because it's granted.
And the healing of the spirit and the heart and the relationships and the political climate and all of those things. It's not just about the virus. I feel like the virus is the catalyst that has brought to light all those other deep-seated illnesses that we've all kind of just ignored for a really long time. Right. But without getting into all of that, I think your future projects sound amazing. And you're that, obviously Bridget's Light, I'm so excited to have been a part of, even in the tiniest way. And this has been just really enlightening and so beautiful to spend time with you ladies. Okay. So I have to ask you, I have a one last question that I ask all of my guests, which is not at all related to Bridget or books or anything. It's simply a matter of me as a kitchen witch liking to, I just ask this question to everyone. So obviously I'm a kitchen witch and my thing is food and cooking and ritual kitchen witchery. If you could have me make one magical meal for you, what would it be and why?
Oh, I'll answer. Oh, but that won't be correct. Ossobuco.
Ossobuco.
I love ossobuco. I was going to say something else, but I'll tell you that privately.
You don't want that on the internet. But why ossobuco? What? When was the last time you had it?
My dad's best friend from 1960, whatever, that they worked together way before I was born. That was his specialty. Ooh. And during the pandemic, and I was waiting to see him again and was going to ask him if he would make that for me. And he passed away during the pandemic.
Oh,
not pandemic related. He developed Alzheimer's. And so that one last wanting of that comfort, to me, ossobuco is like, whoo. So
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love that story. And what about you, Cairelle?
Oh, I know. Chicken parm for sure.
You're like the third person to say chicken parm. Everybody assumes that because I'm an Italian kitchen witch, that's something I'm really good at.
that is one. And then with like, I always say, do you watch, is it the Pasta Grannies? Do you watch them?
No.
Where they have gone around, it's a documentary. They're going around and they film all of these older Italian ladies making pasta.
Oh my God.
Like make it, like, and some of the pasta, you're just like, and you could see these little gnarled old fingers and they're just whipping that dough and they're like patting stuff out or pushing it, making all these little shapes that I do not know the name for. And I would love to have like homemade pasta.
Not my specialty. I'll be super honest with you.
That's okay, but you can still make chicken parm.
My little old Italian grandma didn't make pasta from scratch. Her parents did, but she didn't. I'm not in my lifetime, so it's not
a lot. I think it's an art that's disappearing.
Yeah.
And another thing I think would be interesting is if you made gumbo. I would like to see your take on that.
Oh, gumbo. So I did spend a little bit of time in New Orleans. I was there for a business trip and I have a very severe gluten allergy. And the thing that I was most upset about was that all the really good, authentic New Orleans food was not gluten-free. So I came home and went, screw this. I'm going to make my own New Orleans style. I attempted gumbo, but only once. I made a sick, oh God, what is the name of it? Oh God, a jambalaya. I made a great jambalaya and I did like roasted okra and like, because I was like, this is, I've got to make it for myself because I couldn't have it anywhere. Gumbo is one I've never tried before, but to do, or not, I haven't perfected, but to do it in a magical way would be great.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a big, my husband does most of the cooking. Laura cooks. So like when I was in Mount Shasta, we went to Laura's all the time when she was always cooking things and dessert and all this. So she's a huge cook and a quilter. And I do not cook, but I do make gumbo and I like my gumbo. But there's a saying in New Orleans, it's the basis of it. First you make a roux, which is basically fried flour. That's the basis of flour. Yeah.
But you can make a roux with cornstarch and corn flour. And it doesn't have to, or rice flour. Cornstarch is better. You can make a roux and make it thick and wonderful without using wheat flour. So
there are ways to adapt. Yeah, there are ways to adapt for sure.
Oh my goodness. Now I'm starving.
My family is from Louisiana too. So it's like all the things that Cairelle talks about. I'm like, oh my gosh, I miss that because my grandparents are great. But making pasta is fun. Yeah. And I think everybody should try it. It's not, I did it a few times. My ex-husband's family is Italian. But then the best thing, if you can, is like make the ravioli filling. And there's these pasta places in San Francisco I know of that you take them, the filling, they make the ravioli, give it back to you in boxes. Best ever. There's places like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Shit, I never thought I was going to have to go to San Francisco for anything, but whoa, that's that. I've made homemade pasta a few times from scratch. And I couldn't try. So I was on, totally tangent here, but I was on that show MasterChef with Gordon Ramsay. I did that like 100 years ago. And so while I was kind of like training for that, I taught myself how to do these things, like, make homemade pasta, but I couldn't eat it because it was real pasta. So it was so, my husband was like, oh, this is delicious. I'm like, all right, yay. But no, I know I've done it. It's a lot of work for something I can't enjoy,
Well, then you should watch Pasta Grannies. They're on Instagram as Pasta Grannies. NIES is the ending, Pasta Grannies. And pastagrannies.com. And it's a documentary that this woman named Vicki Bennison is doing. And she is just, because the tradition's disappearing. So it's all of these older women making pasta.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's hysterical. And you look at the food, you're just like, oh my God.
I have a beautiful book that my husband got me a few years ago, and it's called Cooking with Italian Grandmothers. And this woman went to Italy and she went to all these little towns, and, it's right up your alley, right, Cairelle, with the ancestry and the travel and all that. She went to all these little towns and was like, okay, who's the oldest grandma in your town? And she sat down with them or spent a weekend with them and learned their own family recipes. So it's a great book. But you guys, this has
Nice.
been really wonderful. I've really enjoyed learning
It's been
about your
fun.
journey. I hope you've had fun. I'm sure that our listeners are
Yes.
so excited about Bridget's Light. Available now, where books are sold.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, friends, many blessings and very, very much gratitude. Thank you so much for being here.